Alright tubes, got something pretty interesting here for you today. I think we're finally able to go ahead and begin our MIATA turbo project here. So I got all my turbo parts laid out here, or rather my fuel system parts. That's our Bell Engineering adjustable fuel pressure regulator. This here is our auxiliary fuel pump, and then that there is going to be a fuel pressure gauge to help us with tuning. Now if you didn't see my last video, you might be asking yourself what this crazy looking thing here is and why I need it. And so as I said, this is the Bell Engineering fuel pressure regulator. And long story short, whenever you add a turbo or any kind of forced induction to a vehicle, you need to flow more fuel, and the reason for that is you're flowing more air. So these here are your fuel injectors. Now right now I have the stock injectors in my MIATA. I think they're like 250 cc's per minute, I think is the rating on those, but I'm not sure. Regardless of that, they are the stock injectors. I'm going to be maintaining the stock ECU in this car, and so when you're running the stock ECU, generally speaking, you really can't put bigger injectors in it. You could probably get away with maybe 20 to 30% higher, but anything above that, and it's just not going to happen. Right here we have our fuel lines. Now one of these is the feed line and one of these is the return line. And so fuel comes up from the fuel pump, comes up from the feed line, goes to the fuel rail, and kind of sits in there and waits for them to be injected. Now it can only sit in there for so long before the pressure starts to build up. At that point the fuel pressure regulator lets the extra fuel go back through the return line. So what this little thing will do is this is going to sit in between the fuel pressure regulator and the return line, and it has a couple of vacuum lines hooked up to it and a couple of adjustments, and what it allows you to do is when you're in boost you can prevent some of that fuel going back. And long story short, fuel injectors are rated at a certain pressure, and if you increase that pressure the flow will also increase. Now there is a limit to that. Generally speaking, the stock fuel pump will only put out maybe 70 or 80 psi. Now the way we get around this is with the use of this here auxiliary fuel pump. Another option is just to replace the fuel pump altogether and put in a pump that's capable of putting out a higher pressure. But it's a little easier just to install one of these. So this pump here will probably get us up to about 110 psi. Stock fuel system, I wouldn't say that it's safe to run anywhere over 110 psi anyway, just because of the fact that you got rubber lines in there and connectors and stuff that aren't meant to handle pressure higher than that. And so we're going to stick with we're going to keep the pressure below 110. That'll probably mean that we can't go boosting anywhere over 9 pounds, but since I'm running non-intercooled on this for the time being, we're not going anywhere above 5 or 6, so that'll be just fine. So today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to install the regulator itself and the fuel pressure gauge. First thing I want to do is bleed the pressure off the fuel system. So the easiest way to do it in a MIATA is to just open this little box up and pull the relay out for the fuel pump, and then come in here and just crank it a couple times. Alright, so I got to find a place to mount this thing, and probably be a good idea to put it generally over on this side of the engine since that's where all the fuel lines are at. And so there's a spot right back here that is, of course, where Bell Engineering recommends you put it, and for good reason, because there's space for it on the firewall there, and it's real close to all the fuel lines. I just have to check and make sure that it'll clear the hood. Make sure that when the hood closes, I don't have to call Mako and have to have them put a dent in there for me. And so now there's really only 3 things we have to hook up. It's very simple. This here is our signal line, so this needs to get hooked up to a vacuum source, and there's any number of different places we can pull a vacuum signal from. Bill Engineering recommends that you use this one because it's you know, it's not going to have any of the signal pulled from something else. It's just going to be a pure vacuum signal, so I think we'll go with that. Alright, so what I did here is I pulled the two lines off because the lengths of them were kind of opposite what I actually needed. So I pulled the one off, and so what I'm about to do now is I'm about to pull the return line off. The return line one is the farthest one forward, and so I loosened the clamp and twisted a little bit with some pliers, and it's just about ready to come off. So just keep in mind that if you are pulling on these, you don't want to pull on it without holding the line, because otherwise what you can end up doing is you'll kink the line, and then you'll have all kinds of problems. Alright, so we're making pretty good progress here. The FMU itself is totally plumbed in now. I took the vacuum line, and I did end up going up to here where the cruise control used to go, so I'm just going to coil that out of the way, but that's routed up here. Put a little hose clamp on there so that goes around and comes in where it's supposed to. And then our fuel lines here, what I ended up doing is, like I said, I swapped the line. So this is the one that was originally too long, and so that's on the outside now. Literally the out, as in the output of the FMU, and that goes into the return line there. The outlet of the fuel rail, which was originally the return line, which goes into the FMU, was just a little bit too short to fit onto there. If I pulled on it, probably would have been okay, but I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to cut it or reroute it or anything. So I had a little coupler here, so I just ended up putting that on there and adding a little extra piece of hose in there. It might not look the best, but as long as it doesn't leak and is functional, it's just fine by me. Alright, now the final thing we have to install here is our fuel pressure sender unit. I'm not really going to wire up the gauge in this video because it's just for test purposes anyway. It's pretty simple. It's got to go on the feed side of the fuel rail, so that way we can see what the actual fuel pressure at the rail is. So all that's going to happen here is this here is our feed line. This is what comes from the fuel pump under pressure. So all we're going to do is put this in the middle. So I'm going to unplug the feed line, plug this on to the feed from the pump, and then hook the feed to the rail right up to here. That's all we got to do. We're starting to lose our light here, but I got everything totally installed here. Got the fuel pressure unit in there, and everything else has already been done. And so now all we got to do is start it up, check for leaks, and take it for a ride. Let's see what happens. Alright, got it running here and everything looks okay. I'm not seeing any leaks. I checked right at the regulator and the regulator itself, nothing there. My little coupler there, that's fine. The gauge is fine. And our connections, the return and the feed line, they're both good. So let's go for a ride. Alright, so I'm just cruising down my street at about 20 miles an hour in third gear, and everything looks just fine. Sitting right around 14.7, which means this regulator isn't doing anything, and the stock regulator is taking care of it all as it should be. Now what I'm going to do is I'm in third gear. I'm going to slowly start to increase throttle. It shouldn't change at low load. The computer should still stay in open loop. Closed loop. And it looks like right at the end there, as I crossed over about 4,000 RPM, it started to go into the open loop there, and I think that at that point the regulator is bumping the pressure up a little bit. So now we'll just do a little pull here, see what it does. So it's definitely fattening it up a little bit. As you can see there, at the high RPM, it was starting to get up to about down to about 11, which is a lot richer than it used to run. With the stock ECU, I didn't see it go below about I'll say 12 and a half or so when I was doing something just like that. Now, speaking of adjustment, I'm not going to do any adjustment in this video as far as tuning of the FMU goes. And the reason for that is there's not a whole lot I can do before I have the turbo installed and I can go boosting around. But just so you guys are aware, if you do want to do tuning yourself, at idle, the pressure should be around 28 to 30 psi. and then at 0 psi, and the way you can achieve 0 psi is just pull the vacuum line off of your regulator. The pressure should probably be 47, 50, something like that, between 47 and 50, and that's the one you adjust with that nut on the top. And then your boost pressure, if you're running about 8 pounds of boost, your fuel pressure should probably be up around 100 psi. And obviously if we end up going that high, we'll have to install that auxiliary fuel pump. But either way, I'll cover all that, all the tuning I'm going to get to in another video when we have the turbo on and everything. Then we'll do the actual tuning. But we're just cruising down the road. The mixture looks great, and if we put it in like third, put it to the 4, wrenches up exactly